thanks for being the point man for coordinating all of this. This is a pretty special day over the last 2 days. So what we're going to do is Dave and I are going to share, for about the next half hour, 40 minutes, we're going to share a little bit about what we do, what we actually started, and the resource that we have for students, specifically those interested in private practice. But before we get started, I wanted to kind of share with you a few things. I hopefully want to challenge, and we want to challenge the way that you guys think about something that's, we're going to pull back away a little bit from leadership and work our way towards leadership. And that's purchasing decisions and how we actually are influenced to do things, in particular when it comes to the situation or it comes to the place where we actually have to make a decision on what we are going to or not going to buy. Let me give you a perfect example of what I mean, guys, because we normally think about this as this logical process, but it actually defies logic in most situations. So we were at a few schools here over the last several months, and some of you may have heard this story. And actually, for those of you who have heard, I'm going to repeat it for those of you who haven't heard it. 2 years ago, my wife and I needed to update our car. So we needed to get a brand new car. We needed to get rid of the Liberty. It was time to replace it and update things. So we have, the two of us, we had two daughters, at the time 4 years old and 2 years old. We knew that they were going to be involved in dance. We knew they were going to be involved in soccer. We knew that we were going to be carting around probably some of their friends throughout the years. What is the most logical car for us to get at the time? Minivan. Think about what a minivan offers. A minivan's low to the ground.
Sex appeal.
A minivan's literally something where it's easy for kids to get in. Literally, when they're little kids, they can stand inside the minivan. Get into the back seats easy. Whole bunch of storage space. You can put a lot of kids in the back seat. We got to the car dealership, and guess what Sonia wanted absolutely nothing to do with? Minivan. What did she want? And you guys, a few of you guys yelled it out earlier. An SUV. Why did she want that? Because she wanted to be, or she didn't want to be, associated with what we typically think of as the minivan mom. She wanted to be SUV mom. Now here's the other thing. So she's making a purchasing decision, and even though I feel like I'm part of the process, I'm really not. I'm just there for the show and just there to make sure that everything gets taken care of. She walks right up to a Ford Explorer, one of the brand new Ford Explorers. Nice leather interior. It's got the DVD players on the back of the passenger seat and the driver's seat. It's got the sunroof on the top. It's got everything.
Adaptive cruise control.
Adaptive cruise control. Dave knows because he's got one now too. And I said, Sonia, do we really need all this stuff? She's like, oh, totally we do. I said, really? She's like, oh yeah, we need a sunroof for those nice days when we're outside. I said, why do we need the DVD players on the back of the driver's seat and the passenger's seat? This was her response. Well, you know when we take road trips with the kids and they need something to watch and they need something to view when we're doing that kind of stuff. And I asked her, I said, Sonia, how many road trips have we ever been on? 0. How many road trips have we been on since we've gotten the Explorer? 0. Every single one of her justifications for what we were doing made absolutely no sense, and they defied logic, right? Because the logical decision would have been to go with the conservative minivans so that we can make things logically happen. But buying decisions don't happen logically. Buying decisions oftentimes defy logic, and here's why. See, I'm going to just break into a little bit of neuroscience here, because there's two parts of the brain that exist. There's the logical part of the brain. That's actually the neocortex. So when you guys study your neuroanatomy, you're looking at all the folds in the brain, that's the part of the brain that tells us 1 + 1 is 2. That's the part of the brain that tells us a -2 myope can see up close here without their glasses, but can't see in the distance without their glasses or their proper prescription or correction. But that's not where most purchasing decisions are made. Purchasing decisions are actually made in a much deeper part of the brain. It's actually the limbic system. The limbic system is kind of interesting. It's the primitive part of the brain. It's the part that's responsible for the fight or flight. It's the part that's responsible for emotions. See, that's what the SUV triggered for Sonia. It defied all logic, because when we looked at the price tag, and when we looked at what we were getting, there was no reason that it made sense, specifically because of what we needed that car to do. We needed it to easily transport people. We needed it easily to transport other stuff. The SUV is just not the best solution for that. But the SUV triggered an emotional response from Sonia. And when you trigger that emotional response in a consumer, you can actually defy logic, and you can actually have or influence purchasing decisions that truly do or don't necessarily make sense when you try to draw it out on papers. Now, I want to share with you guys a video that Dave actually showed me about a year ago. At this point, I've watched it about 100 times. How many of you knew that that was an Apple commercial before you saw it? So a few of you in the room have seen it.
Is that because you've seen it before? Yeah.
See, it's interesting the way that Apple communicates with us, because it's very, very different than every single other company out there. And I'm going to describe to you exactly why it is. Let's take, for example, one of the other biggest computer manufacturers that are out there. Let's look at Dell. And what does Dell do to us? To us, what Dell does is they tell us everything that they do, and they do a great job at it. Our computers have this many gigahertz, our computers work this fast, our laptops are this light, and you can get it all for this cost. So they do a great job of telling us what they do. They actually even tell us, or do a great job of telling us how they do it. We do it with high technology, high equipment. We do everything in the best way possible. But we never know why Dell's doing what they're doing. We just don't understand that concept. They've mastered the art of telling us what they do, and they've mastered the art of telling us how efficiently they can do it, and they've mastered the art of telling us for what cost they could do it. But there's zero emotional connection. Think about what happens when you buy a Dell computer. The next time it's time for you to upgrade your computer, here's what happens. Your purchasing decision is built on the same principles that got you that Dell computer in the first place. You go, you open up your Best Buy, and you say, well, this one has more megabytes, more gigahertz, it's a lighter laptop, it's faster, it's quicker, and it's for less dollars. This makes more sense to me at this point.
Let me ask you a quick question. How many of you own Dell computers? How many of you own an Apple computer?
How many of you own iPhones?
How many of you own something other than an iPhone? Okay.
For those of you that have iPhones, lift up your hands, and keep your hands up if an iPhone is going to be your next purchase. Okay, you can put your hands down. I have horrible news for you guys. You guys are not using the most technologically advanced system out there. You're not, period. Think about the emotional connection that a company like Apple has with their customers. What other computer brand will people literally stand outside for days waiting for the exact same phone, only a different number on that phone? I mean, really, that's what you're looking at. And people who love Macs, they'll actually try to justify to you why they're the best. They'll tell you they're easier to use. Are they really easier to use? They'll be so convincing. They'll be talking about it with such passion. See, here's what's happened. They've defied logic. They've made us do illogical things. How many of you have a laptop at home? How many of you have a home computer or some type of other computer? And how many of you have iPads or smart tablets? Don't those things have redundant functions? Do you actually need
Don't
all
those
of
things have redundant functions?
You've ever seen the commercials? I'm a Mac, I'm a PC. You don't need all that stuff. But somehow there's this feeling in us that says we need to have this. See, they've defied logic because they've actually connected with us at a different level. When Apple talks to us, and every single time they do this, they tell us why they're doing what they're doing. And they even tell us how they're doing what they're doing. Right at the end, the what? That's just the computers. That's just the computers that they make. Could you imagine the type of leadership that you could have if you literally took this and emulated this whole concept into something much larger, something that we've been talking about for the last 2 years?
And I think that really brings up something that we all look for in the practices that we're going to have some days, or the leaders that we want to be and the success that we want to have, is what separates a company or what separates an individual from being successful versus failure. Let's use that Mac example. Is there any reason why Apple computers logically should succeed better than any other computer company? Logically. Are their computers, as Emil and I were just talking, are they better? Are they higher quality? Are they faster? Do they have more gigs? They're none of those things, but they are more expensive.
But they offer the support and on the other.
I would say that I would argue with you. I've got some friends that work for Microsoft who are on the support teams and provide fantastic support.
With the phone.
And we could probably go back and forth and argue about the different things, but is that thing that you guys are going to bring up worth $1,000 more per computer than something else? I am the most die-hard Mac fan. I use my Mac computers at my house. We have 5 of them, and there's only 2 adults in our house. So why is it that I continue to buy them? And it's like crack cocaine. I want another one and another one, and we've got 2 iPads, and I need more iPads in my house. I am a die-hard Apple person, but there is absolutely nothing about their computers that is so much better than anybody else logically. But I am drawn to Apple because of that neocortex, not the neocortex, the limbic brain, which is the illogical thought process. It's the emotional drivenness that we have. I want to tell you a story about an individual by the name of Samuel Langley. Have any of you heard of Samuel Langley? Samuel Langley was a genius. This man brought about something that has revolutionized the world. In the late 1800s, as an engineer, he was the first man to defy gravity and get an unmanned aircraft into the air. He was a secretary for the Smithsonian. He was a Harvard professor. He was in the upper crest of the elite intelligent people in the United States. Friends with Alexander Graham Bell, friends with presidents, government officials everywhere. They saw what he was doing in the aircraft and the airfield world, and he invented something called the aerodrome. It wasn't called an airplane back then, but the aerodrome. And they saw that he had this thing flying, published papers about it, and they decided to give him money. And he got hordes and hordes of money, $50,000 at the time in the late 1800s, from the War Department as well as from the Smithsonian, because he committed to being the first man to be able to create a manned air travel system. And he wanted to do that so he could be rich and famous, so that all these great things could happen, and he knew that it would boost his social status to create the first air travel system. Does anybody know him to be the first? But you may know some guys from not far from here in Dayton, Ohio, who had this little bicycle shop. And these guys were absolute misfits. They were socially so awkward. One of them broke his teeth when he was in high school and became basically a social recluse and just didn't communicate with anybody. And they formed this newspaper company, and they had this little bicycle shop, and they read a little bit about Samuel Langley and what he had done. And they got to conceptualizing themselves after work every day, these two little brothers, about what air travel could do for people, how it could change the world. In fact, they're quoted as saying, "Isn't it astonishing that all these mysteries are yet to be discovered, and we have the opportunity to do so?" And that was where the Wright brothers started. Their why, and why they got up every day, was to be able to change the world and think about the mysteries we could provide for people for generations to come. Did they have resources? No. They had a bicycle shop where they were hardly making it. Did they have all the influence of everybody who was an engineering genius in the world? No. But yet, their engineering genius, these two bicycle guys, are still used in the airplanes that you flew here for this conference. Their genius of air travel was still being used. In December of 1903, Orville drew the short straw and was able to fly the plane for 6.8 miles per hour, 120 feet. He got off the ground, and they flew that plane 4 times before the wind caught it, and it never flew again. Do you know how many hundreds of people were there to watch Samuel Langley as his plane went into the water and just got destroyed? Hundreds, and media people were there to take pictures. Do you know how many people were there to watch the Wright brothers? 5. Themselves, a little boy who probably rode his bike out into the Kitty Hawk fields was like, "What are you guys doing?" And two or three other people. It took weeks for the news of air travel to actually get verified, and a lot of people didn't believe that they had done it. So they had to build another plane because their original one got busted, and they had to prove it over and over again. Why did these two guys who had nothing succeed where Samuel Langley did not succeed? Was it the resources they had? The reason it started is right here. They had a why that was built around something greater than themselves. And when people have a why and a purpose that is built around something greater than themselves and is built around something that can lead, greatness can be achieved, and there can be amazing things that can happen.
It's interesting, Dave, listening to that story. Again, even when I think about it, you realize, again, the resources, the acquisition of resources, the promises that Samuel Pierpont Langley even made to investors, saying, "We are going to make you guys rich," period. That was his goal. And when you realize why he was doing what he was doing, it was flawed from the beginning. It was flawed from the get-go. You realize immediately why he actually failed. And you start to see how and why guys like the Wright brothers inspired people around them to actually become and be better, because they couldn't have done it by themselves, and they had zero resources other than that passion to actually do it. So why are we sharing this?
Yeah, so a big part of this is we want you to know that becoming successful in your clubs, becoming successful as an optometry student, and becoming successful as a future optometrist, if you can find your purpose of the reason that you get out of bed every single morning, there is no way that you cannot achieve greatness in what you do. Mila and I have our own personal why. My why is I wake up every morning to enrich and inspire people so they can succeed to their greatest potential. When I walk into an exam room with a patient, I know my goal for that day. When I spend the day with my daughters, I know my objectives for that day. I want to make Via and Ellie feel so good about themselves that they can succeed in whatever they do. So having that allows you to do that. But also, Optometric Insights, which is our company, we're going to tell you a little bit about it, we exist to inspire success. And that's what we want to do for you in your clubs and optometry students around the country, is we want to be able to inspire you to be successful.
we realize that 20%, because we strongly believe in the 80-20 rule, 20% of you are going to absolutely crush it. You are going to go out there and you are going to be the shining stars of optometry. But we want to move that needle, and we would love to be able to get that to 25 or 30 or 40%. And we want to inspire the success that you will achieve in some way. We don't want to take credit for it, but we want to be able to provide you the resources. And we feel that the first resource that you can have is to know why you wake up every single morning and what success truly looks like for you. So some of the resources that we provide in Optometric Insights is we provide career coaching. So we come out to the optometry schools and do programs. If you've had us at your school, can you raise your hand? We just want to see. So most of you have had us at your school once. Unfortunately, we get advertisers to support us to come into the schools, and we don't have enough to go to every school every single year, but we are trying to increase that so that we can do that, and also just logically it's difficult for us to get away from our practices to come to every school, but we try. The other thing that we can do is we can provide resources online. So we're creating and have created video support about some of the very common questions that optometry students have. Questions like student loans. And we don't like the word student loans because we consider what you've done is you've had a student investment. So we call it student investments. And how do you pay that off? What's a good way to think about it? Do I pay it all off right away? Or do I pay it off over 20 years? And we've got an opinion about that. Other things that we think that you should do is consider ways that you're going to spend your money when you first get out of school. And what is it like to be an associate versus a partner? What is it like to join a practice or buy a practice? Those are the types of things that we want to be able to provide support and help in any way that we can. Neil and I were going into optometry schools individually. We've been speaking for 10 and 15 years, have been out of school, and right away we knew that there were some gaps in the optometric education. The schools have increased the education for practice management significantly over the last 10 years, but we still have seen some gaps and maybe ways that we can help. And sometimes it's not necessarily there's a gap, but while you're in class, there's a blind spot that you don't see the teaching that's going on. So we provide resources that you can come to get. So we were going to the optometry schools individually, and then all of a sudden started chatting about what we were doing in the schools, doing private practice clubs, and we realized, good heavens, we need to form some sort of circle around this so that it can be greater than ourselves. And that's what we've been doing recently over the last 2 years. Our company's been going for 2 years. We don't charge students anything for any of the services that we provide. We have advertising support from several different companies, including VSP, which we're really grateful that Dana was able to help us get. And those are some of the resources that we have. And you wanted to talk just a little bit.
Yeah, so, one of the real mission with Optometric Insights is to inspire success and to really give you guys what we feel are the tools that are there to help and make that happen. And we're with the leadership right now. But Dave and I have always said that this is bigger than Dave and Neil. We've always said this, which is why we think really big when we're thinking about these concepts. And one of the things we know is that we need to be working with other people. So we're actually fortunate to kind of officially unveil the first team member that we were really bringing on to Optometric Insights as the Optometric Insights ambassador to the students. And for those of you who haven't met him yet, it's Harmon. Harmon, if you could just stand up, wave, say hi to everybody. Yeah. Harmon's a fourth-year optometry student at Ohio State University. And Harmon's been working with us for several months now. And again, what his role is really going to be is to be the ambassador to the students. And what we're going to do is we're going to establish a real point person with every school, the Optometric Insights liaison to students. And that person is going to really be Harmon's kind of focal point to make sure that everything that's new with Optometric Insights and all the new resources that we have, you guys are actually going to have access to. You guys are going to have access to them in a timely manner, and it's really going to be directed from Harmon. And then if you have any questions about anything that we offer, really going to be our point person and really the person that establishes and continues to establish that relationship with the schools. And later on today, we're going to be fortunate enough to have breakout sessions where we're going to meet with most of you, and we'll be able to create those relationships so that we can determine and figure out exactly who that's going to be at every one of the schools.
One of the objectives that we want to try to provide a resource for is you don't always get the questions that you want answered, because the problem is you don't know what questions to ask. And what are the things that I should be thinking about in my first, second, or third, or fourth year as I'm looking at getting out? So we're trying to address those questions along the way, but we also realize that we're old guys, right? I graduated 10 years ago, and the world is very different. I feel very fortunate for where I am in my practice. I own 2 practices in the Seattle area. Neil's got 4 practices that he has in Ohio. We're very fortunate with where we've come, but we also want to make sure that we don't step away from what's fresh and what are the struggles that are going on right now. My interest rate on my student loan is 1%. None of you are going to have that, right? So I live in a very different world for something that is one of the most significant things that you're addressing when you get out of school. So that's where Harmon comes into play, but also we're looking for somebody at every single school who can help us, can meet with us at optometry meetings every single year at the AOA and Academy to make sure that we stay on point of the things that we need to be addressing. And we welcome feedback from everybody. Our point of contact primarily over the last 2 years has been you guys, has been the private practice clubs. And what we want to do is we want to come into the school and talk to as many people as possible. So if it's your club joining up with another club, great. We just want to share the OI love in whatever capacity. So Harmon's going to be a point person, and if you know of somebody in your school, because I know that all of you have a lot of things on your plate, and you know of somebody that might be able to just stay connected with us, Harmon would love to meet that person or connect with that person. And then I also want to share that the way that we disseminate our information, we are willing to change that in any capacity. I hate reading. I have convergence insufficiency, and I have been going double recently. My wife is a vision therapist, but of course we don't ever do vision therapy on me. I do have my Brock string with me. But, so I hate reading, where that was going, and I also go off on tangents. But I hate reading, and so what we are doing, and we're attempting to disseminate all of our information through video. And we try to make none of the videos that we create longer than 4 minutes. We shoot for 3 minutes, because we feel that for optometry students, you need a quick, just something fast. Like, give me a tidbit, give me an insight here. And that's what they're called, e-insights and clinical insights. So those are the quick tidbits that we have. We disseminate them through Facebook and through our blog, and we can also use Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, all of those sort of things to get our information out. We just need to know at your school what is the best way to do that, and we would love for you as the private practice clubs to help us disseminate that information to your club members. Ultimately, we want you to be successful when you graduate. And we realize that your career may not start until 2 years after you graduate, so we do not end our contact with you as soon as you graduate. We're not an optometry student club. We are an optometry student organization and an emerging practitioner organization. And that's who Optometric Insights is.
So you understand a little bit more about us and what drives Dave and I. I mean, you understand why we created Optometric Insights. I wish that this concept was ours. This isn't ours. For those of you, actually, just to ask a question, has anybody read the book Start With Why? Good. So there's.
We won't send them.
We won't send you guys the books, but everybody else, what we're going to do is later on today, Dave and I want you guys to have that book, because there isn't one concept that's fundamentally changed and shifted the way that Dave and I think, do business, and even personal relationships more so than this book has. The fundamental concepts are so basic that you read the book and you say, oh yeah, that's right. I've just never had anybody spell it out. And it actually talks about human nature, and you just understand how certain people certain decisions, how certain people can have that influential leadership roles, not only in their practices, but in their communities, and even greater than their offices and their communities as well, too. It's by Simon Sinek. Like I said, after when we start going, or when we have the breakout sessions later on today, for anybody that would like that book, Dave and I would love to get that book to you. So all we need is your name and the best address to get it to you, and we'll shoot it out to you, and we'll make sure that you get that in the
Just
next
make sure
few
Harmon
weeks.
has that address, and we'll get a copy sent to you. So find him either during the session or at one of the breakouts when we meet. You're welcome to get us your address that way.
Yeah, and Dave and I will be here all day or for the rest of the conference too. So if you have any specific questions for us, like I said, you definitely feel free to come up and ask us. And Harmon's going to be here as well too. So Dana, thank you for having us here. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for all you do, all the contributions you made to the clubs, and I know, like I said, you've been to most of them now, and rave reviews, and we'll continue to roll this thing out, and I know everybody here in the room wants to see it continue and to support you in it. So we got just let's